Hello, everybody. Welcome to the United Front. This year, Manchester United transfer you. Yes, it's been a while, but a lot has happened in past few days. We got today's news in Sancho bid from Roma. I mean, is that really helpful for us? Obviously, we got Hojlund open to leave. We don't know how reliable that is because obviously Hojlund does want to stay, but apparently he's open to moves like AC Milan, Borussia Dortmund, and apparently a Premier League club in Fulham. Talks going on with Baleba, and apparently his terms agreed. So, I mean, it's just waiting for that, bombshell for either Ornstein or Fabrizio. Apparently, LAMMENS looks like to be our only goalkeeper, and obviously SESKO has played behind us. So obviously, let's get into it. So obviously, Sancho bid, obviously came from Roma. So this is coming from Fabrizio. Roma have made a 20 million bid, signed Sancho, while obviously a permanent move is offered, but they're also open to loan with a buy in clause. So basically, loan with an option to buy. I mean, if they're offering 20 million, just take it instead of, going on going on loan, which is his last year, and then they pay the money. It's his last year. Just take the money as it is. And look, I hope United don't do some kind of, can we get 25 million? Look, 20 million is what he's worth. Why? Because of, all it started from Ten Hag, where he decided not to play, and then obviously made this move to Dortmund. Played well there, but still, obviously next season after that, Chelsea came in, wanted to buy him as well, which was part of it, but obviously didn't end up doing it. So obviously they paid the penalty, which gave us 5 million free. But I mean, look, I don't want to take a risk and go take a loan with a buying clause, because you never know. He might do well, but then, when getting Sancho and knowing his wages are just gonna be, outrageous. You never know. Roma might not do the deal, and you never know. He's gonna go on a free, and then someone else will happily pay his wages. So, look, I just think in terms of this 20 million bid made, I think you have to take. Look, they have to take it. Look, I mean, we haven't sold anyone, to be honest. I mean, all this money that's been coming from, literally, is coming from sell-on clauses. Like Alvaro Fernandez went to Real Madrid. I think we got 50 million from him. Elanga, we're gonna get 15 or 20 million from him. I believe. I'm sorry if I don't know the right amount. And it was another player, but you're telling me we're only getting all these, money from selling is from our players that we already sold, but we just put sell-on clauses. I mean, it's just amazing how bad we are, but it's not how bad we are. It's just the players that we bring in, the players that make it hard for us. Like, we want Garnacho out, Anthony, Sancho, but they make it harder, Sancho wants a club that can give him the wages he wants. Anthony only wants Betis. Garnacho only wants Chelsea. I mean, that's what makes it hard. One that obviously made it possible was Rashford, but that was only because Barcelona couldn't get Williams or Diaz, and obviously Rashford lowered his wages, so that's why he got the move. So look, obviously if Roma making a 20 million bid to sign Sancho, which he is open to, then you take it. We don't need to do some little negotiations where, can we have 3 million, 4 million? No, just take it, because at this point I think that's what he's worth. And I mean, it's amazing because I always go back to the signing we made of Sancho, and obviously it was an exciting signing, but look where it came up to. I think ego, attitude, or whatever you want to call it, work rate, it just kind of dropped, and that's not what you want at United. Pretty much you don't want at any club, but I still think people are still taken because of talent and quality, to be honest. But that's not really nothing if you don't do the basics. So hopefully we do agree on it. Hopefully, look, I know people are gonna say, well, it's gonna be a loan with a buy clause, but should we take the risk? Because look, we've seen it with Sancho with Chelsea. He didn't Chelsea didn't buy him. Um, do you want to take a risk? I mean, since this is last year, and then obviously you don't get any money for him. Look, if Roma are willing to pay 20 million, why don't you pay it now? It's not like you're paying 50 million, but you want to buy a loan with a buy option. So, look, 20 million. I mean, I don't know what their finances are, but look, 20 million. I think look, for the quality he is and everything, I feel like you're kind of getting a bargain. The only thing you're not getting a bargain is his off the pitch kinds of stuff, and obviously his wages. So, but apart from that, I think that's about it. And look, obviously, like I said, he's open, his doors to Roma. Obviously, he doesn't want to go to Turkey, which obviously he's got offers from. So he still feels like he can still play in Europe. Obviously, look, it could be a loan option with an obligation to buy. But if we're really being honest, I mean, a permanent transfer would do well, because I just can't bear the fact of going with a loan with a buying option. Somehow shit happens, and then, that's it. And there's no point, if they don't do it, Roma, they don't mind even paying the penalty, because they can just do that and, get him for free. So, but that's the latest on Sancho, which obviously is surprising because no one expected such news coming out for him, because it was quiet for a few weeks. I mean, it's all been about Garnacho, to be honest, in terms of outgoings. But apart from that, I mean, obviously it's probably the first bit of news that we've heard from Sancho, which is obviously huge and interested to hear. So yeah, Hojlund, I mean, look, I don't really want to. One thing I do hate is rinse and repeat. I don't like really repeating myself. I told my thoughts on Hojlund. Apparently he could leave, apparently he could not. I mean, obviously, it's coming from Ben Jacobs saying United prefer, obviously, Rasmus to be exited. But obviously, Rasmus wants to stay and fight. He doesn't mind the competition. And I did say this before. Him competing with, with SESKO is good, because you want to compete with someone who we thinks he's like, who we think is good and one of the best talents in Europe. Why don't you compete with that? If you think you've got, the mentality, the hunger to obviously go and compete with someone like SESKO. So, look, and I've said this before, why can't we keep him as backup? I don't understand. He like, technically he's trying to say, I don't mind being the backup, but I'll still fight for first place. And people say, oh, we need to sell. I'm thinking to myself, you're either stupid or you don't listen or you don't know anything about squad depth. If we sell Rasmus, you're going to need another striker, because Xerxes isn't a number 9. I think he's more of a 10 than he is a number 9. Chido is too young. So who are you going to replace if SESKO... Look, I don't care if SESKO has a good record when it comes to injury. You never know. He might come to United and actually pull his hamstring or something. Obviously, I hope it doesn't happen, but you never know. Injuries are not predictable. They happen just in an instant. You never know. He might come on for Arsenal and he's out for 8 months. You never know. So, look, we need to be precautious because of how we're managing game time for SESKO. Obviously, Xerxes could sometimes play there. Cheeto can play, he can play sometimes depending on who we play. Look, obviously, for example, Grimsby Town, who we obviously drew last night in the League Cup. So, pretty sure he probably play against them. But you need to know as well, SESKO isn't going to play every single Premier League game, just to be clear, because it's not easy to play every single Premier League game, And obviously, look, depending on the opponent, like someone like, let's just say Leeds or a Sunderland, or maybe a Brentford, let's just say lower league tables, you probably might play Hojlund, And I've always said this before. Certain games I play Hojlund, certain games I play Xerxes when it was last season. Obviously, Sesko comes in, he's gonna play most of the games. But in certain games where you see teams that are, you know, we expect to beat, you probably play Hojlund. And look, like I said, hopefully this will make Hojlund into a better player with competing with someone like with Sesko. But look, apparently he's getting offers from AC Milan, Dortmund, apparently Fulham, and look, I don't want it to happen because again you want squad depth, but hopefully we might see a different Hojlund this season. I hope to see a different Hojlund because we know what Hojlund's capable of. It's just that I don't want to repeat myself, but it's just low in confidence. And look, I said this again. He shouldn't be number one for United at this moment. He could potentially make himself number one when he improves or whatever, because there is potential. But with someone like Hojlund, he is a learner driver. He is an experienced. So look, obviously, apparently, look, this is coming from Demarcio saying that he's open into joining AC Milan, and obviously AC Milan do want him. This has been going on probably past 2 weeks. So, I think having someone that AC Milan wanted him, and obviously, I think they sold a striker. I don't know who, but I think, look, I'd want to keep him, but knowing it's like basically protesting about something which will never go in your way. So look, who knows? But look, I know people are saying that he wasn't playing against Fiorentina, not even a single minute, but he was still in the matchday squad. He could have picked out anyone in the youth and left Rasmus out. Now, obviously, if he, let's just say, for example, he leaves out Rasmus against Arsenal and against Fulham, and he's not even a matchday squad, then you can make a case to say, you know what, in that last week, you're looking to move on Hojlund. But if he's still on the bench, if he still gets minutes, then you still feel like, he's still part of plans. And look, Amrin wants him. Amrin, I don't understand. People need to realize he likes Hojlund. It's just the board. And look, they're using this whole money, trying to raise funds up for Baleba by selling Rasmus. And I'm thinking to myself, you're using the wrong players, and it frustrates me because it's the wrong players that get sold, but it's always it's always the wrong players that get sold, but it's the players that need to be sold but that always stay. Like, we've done this shit with Lindelof. I mean, he stayed for 8 years. I mean, maximum he should have been there at least for free. But obviously, like United, we like keeping shit in our club. It's not like, oh, we need to move on this, we need to move on that. No, you just want to keep the deadwood, and that's what we're trying to do. But if you're gonna keep someone like Anthony Garnacho and Sancho still at the club, then you're really not doing anything about it, apart from, look, what they're gonna do if let's just say those three don't go. What are they gonna do? Train with the under 21s? Play with the 21s? I don't know. And look, I still believe Rasmus deserves another season, because I want to see him in a Man United shirt, in a team, in a squad where he can compete with someone that people will say is better. Fair enough. It doesn't matter. Look, it doesn't matter. Pretty sure people will agree with obviously Sesko being better than Hojlund. But that's what you want from Rasmus. Compete with someone who's better than you and prove the haters wrong. That, I can compete with someone like Sesko. But obviously we need to see. Obviously in the Premier League against Arsenal, or coming days like Fulham. So yeah. I want to talk about Baleba. So obviously everyone knows we're interested in Baleba, but obviously this came from Ben Jacobs, and apparently we can somehow afford to get Baleba in terms of advance, because look, apparently he said you can almost take an advance and take some of the budget next summer, in which meaning Bruno Fernandes could leave for Saudi Arabia. Now obviously, for those that don't know, Bruno said he's more likely to stay one season at Man United, and obviously people questioning, thinking, what, if that was the case, why didn't we go and sell him? You know, if he was willing to, you know, stay one more season. Because for someone like Bruno say, I want to stay at Man United, you'd be expecting like 3-4 years. But for him to say, I want to stay at least one more season, that it's like, well, you should have sold him then. So there was pretty no point. But if Bruno does go, then obviously I don't think finance wise is a problem. If we do get Baleba, you know, I feel like it could be paid off. Apparently, look, I don't know. Obviously, people were saying, oh, apparently a bid will come in for Baleba. This is coming from it was just here. It was coming from Cameroon sources. I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna pretend and say, you know what? It's not reliable. Obviously, Ben Jacobs have said that you know, this is what he says. Talks have already started and will continue on club to club side. United don't have a price, and Brighton have number internally. If you get within the ballpark of that number, they will sell, but you're bidding blind. So, look, I've said my case on Baleba. Look, I think he's an amazing player, but if you're willing to spend 100 million, especially we don't know if Baleba's gonna be an absolute revolution at Manchester United, you know, it's kind of a risk, especially spending 100 million on a player like Baleba. And look, you're doing business with Brighton. It's not a surprise. Look what they did with negotiations with Chelsea. That isn't a surprise. So, you know, but look, I've said this. Look, he's a great player, but if you're willing to spend that much, spend it on a goalkeeper or a midfielder at least. You know, there's no point spending on one player. You know, you're just it's like almost blowing one transfer budget on one window. I mean, I don't know from this point where we're getting this money, but it's happening. It's somehow possible. But I've said this before, you know, I'd rather get a midfielder and a goalkeeper with that price. Look, I say goalkeeper. Look, I thought we would talk to Donnarumma. Apparently that isn't the case, because apparently City are interested in him, and apparently we might go in LAMMENS, which I obviously will talk about. But getting a midfielder, getting a goalkeeper for the price of 100 million, I feel like it's more of a bargain than it's better value than obviously going with one player. Now, obviously, Amrin did say, and he does want Baleba because he gives you intensity, he gives you legs in midfield, he's relentless, and he's good on the ball, and he loves driving through players. And obviously, when we say driving through players, it gets to your mind about Kobe Mainoo. Now, obviously, people are going to say, oh, but Mainoo can do that. But the difference with Baleba and Mainoo is Mainoo's more attacking-minded, whereas Baleba is more defensive-minded. Now, obviously, he can attack, but I still regard him as more of a defensive than he's more attacking. Whereas Mainoo is vice versa, attacking more than defending. Not say he can't defend, but in terms of comparing someone like Baleba, like he can intercept, he's pressing, he's relentless, he's work hard. You know, he loves driving through, and yeah, he's absolutely everywhere on the pitch, and obviously that's what you need, legs in midfield. But my question is, it's great knowing that that's his qualities, but 100 million, I mean, could you not get someone else that can do that as an alternative? Because look, apparently, it's do or die basically for Manchester United, because they want Baleba. You know, they don't want to go for anyone. Apparently, they don't really have a plan B. Apparently, Adam Wharton is on that list, but is it really someone? Because there's no point getting Adam Wharton where you got Kobe Mainoo. I mean, I don't really understand. So, look, I mean, look, I like the player, to be honest, but if I'm Man United, if I'm Amrin, I'd bloody take a midfielder and a goalkeeper, because that's what he needs technically to complete this obviously summer transfer window. And obviously when you go to the next, maybe he'd want another centre half, maybe he'd want a win back. You never know. So, but in terms of this window, he kind of needs a midfielder and a goalkeeper. So to really complete this transfer window, but obviously we're not obviously going to get Baleba at the Arsenal game, of course, maybe not even the Fulham game. even a goalkeeper as well. So I mean, do you go look? I mean, then look, Man United looking to break the bank with Baleba, to be honest. But I'm just saying, in terms of value wise, I'd go with a midfielder and a goalkeeper. At least you're getting two players. 100 million one player. I mean, it's great or whatever, but it can be a risk at some time. So, but if we get Baleba, it'd be revolution. It'd be insane. I wouldn't be mad because he is a great player, but it's like, well, you could have spent that money on another player as well, like a goalkeeper. So, But anyway, as I was talking about goalkeeper LAMMENS, so obviously for those that don't know, Donnarumma apparently he's getting interest from our rivals in City. And you know what? I don't understand, to be honest. I mean, City just signed Trafford, and now you want to get someone like Donnarumma, who's a world-class keeper, and you're thinking to yourself, if you're Trafford and City are trying to get, Donnarumma, then why am I here for? Because it's hard to compete. Look, just imagine yourself in Trafford's shoe, and you're competing with one of the world's best in Donnarumma. It's like, what was the point of me coming back? I don't know where City are. I mean, do they class Trafford as a second or a first team goalkeeper? So look, I mean, I don't really understand City getting Donnarumma because you got James Trafford, but look, I mean, look, only City fans know, but if City fans are gonna say, oh, Trafford's only backup, then Trafford just basically wasted his time going back to Man City, because he went all the way from Burnley, who was starting week in, week out, did so well. He's one of the reasons why Burnley got promoted, and you go and join City thinking, you know what, I could be a number one for City, and apparently you got a team like PSG who got Donnarumma, who's world class, and it's like, if that's possible, you're gonna have to compete with that. So, I obviously I'd wanted Donnarumma, but apparently obviously no formal talks or whatever. He's obviously interested coming to the Premier League. Obviously he hasn't said his desires of playing for which club, but look, if I was United, I'd be getting Donnarumma. But look, this is the thing as well. We're not one of those teams where we have a certain group working on that transfer and we got another group working on that transfer. We're working on each transfer one by one. And right now we're prioritizing Baleba. And if Baleba's not done by then, we're not getting a goalkeeper. So we're not getting a goalkeeper until Baleba's done. Where we get, here we go, he's in a United shirt, medical done, this, that, and then we can focus on the goalkeeper. But look, doing a deal like this with Brighton, especially for the price they want, it's not easy. So, I mean, it's not easy. So, as I was saying, with LAMMENS, so obviously, piss off City, I don't want to see that. Where was that? Strange. I don't like doing that. Well, oh my god, this is embarrassing. I mean, the tweet was here. Ben Jacobs said it himself. Okay, found it. So yeah, as I was saying, so obviously Ben Jacobs said, more likely, if the goalkeeper was a choice for Manchester United, it would be LAMMENS. Now, obviously, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I haven't seen much of LAMMENS. Apparently, he's one to watch in terms of goalkeepers, from Royal Antwerp. But my question is, when signing LAMMENS, does that mean you push on buying there or you push a Vanana? Because if we brought in I'm sorry, not De Gea. If we brought in Donnarumma, for sure you're pushing out Onana because he's first choice keeper. And Onana's first choice. You're making Donnarumma your first choice keeper, so technically you're moving out Onana. Whereas LAMMENS, I think you're really pushing out buying there, which I don't. Look, I don't know what this criticism is. Obviously, I'll talk more about buying there when I do my match preview on Arsenal. But I mean, if we get LAMMENS, I mean, is he gonna start for Manchester United? Is he gonna really be start? I mean, would you say he's the number one? I don't know, but I mean, to be honest, in terms of any keeper we get, surely gonna be better than obviously Onana, because I mean, look, I mean, any keeper is just, you know, good, to be honest. But it's about is he gonna be good for Manchester United? Is he our number one? You know, a lot of pressure's gonna be on him, because look, like people might say striker, but I think goalkeeper, especially playing for Man United, is one of the toughest, and it could demoralize you in many ways. You know, it's not easy. And look, when we signed Onana, we thought we were signing one of the best keepers, and since he's been at United, he's absolutely been dog shit. So it's like this keeper went from all the way in the Champions League with Inter to being one of the shittest keepers when no one actually wants to buy him, which is absolutely crazy. But when you're watching football with your eyes, you clearly know why no one wants him, because clearly everyone knows how bad Onana is. But I mean, that's the thing as well. You know, if we did get Donnarumma, that meant that, you know, we'd have to move on Onana. But if we can't get a fee for him, then probably would have got a loan. But in terms of us being interested in LAMMENS, and probably the only interest we can get if we were signing a keeper, you probably say second, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's first, because if he's a type of goalkeeper that can push out Onana, then that's good. But I mean, when I see, you know, obviously LAMMENS, as of right now, I see him more of as a number two, but hopefully he can be a number one for Man United if we do get him. But apart from that, I mean, look, it went all the way from Donnarumma to LAMMENS. Look, I'm not mad, but if in terms of quality wise, Donnarumma's far bigger, you know, far better. So, you know, but it is what it is. You know, transfer windows can be, you know, it can go left, right, and center. So, you know, it could be positive and it could go negative. So yeah, pretty much that's the show. But I also wanted to talk about, obviously, a little bit about SESKO. Has been a while since obviously he signed from for United, but obviously he did play closed doors in the under 21s. Apparently he scored 2 goals and assists. So obviously great, but obviously you expect him to score, especially is it under 21. Now I'll talk about more when I'm doing my match preview against Arsenal, but there's always been this debate about, should he start against Arsenal? Should he come off the bench? Now, I was thinking, you know what, it'd be great to see him off the bench, because of, like, oh my god, like, you know, and I know people are going to say, how is that great? I'll explain why, because it's almost like when a substitution is being made, you know, it's SESKO and it's like, oh my god, let's see what is he going to do. Obviously, it's great if, look, I'd be as happy if he starts. My question is that with him starting, is like, is he ready? Now, look, people can say he just played a closed door game, but it's like, you know, is he like fully ready? Look, you could probably say he is. My only problem is, if he does come off the bench, which I don't want him to, it would be the only problem, is that with Amrin, one of his worst flaws is he makes substitutions late. And obviously example like that in the Europa League final. You never know. Maybe he might start Rasmus 70 minutes, brings on SESKO for 20 minutes, and you're thinking, well, what's the point? You know, so maybe that's why I'm more leaning towards SESKO starting against Arsenal. But I don't know what it is. There's something about, you know, coming off the bench and try and make an impact, try to change the game. Because we did see with Xerxes when he scored against Fulham, and look how that turned out. So, you know, it's about coming off the bench, making an impact, and obviously making a name for yourself. So, I mean, pretty much that's about it. But, you know, obviously reviewing myself, because initially I was gonna start Rasmus, you know, against Arsenal, but obviously the problems with, you know, not him starting against Fiorentina, not even playing a single minute, you know, he could probably start SESKO, and I'm just as happy, because at least obviously Arsenal will start Gyökeres, and obviously you got SESKO, you know, that will start. So probably, look, all I'm saying is going to be a blockbuster when we face against Arsenal. And obviously, I'm going to do a watch along of that. So, yeah. But apart from that, I think that's about it. So, yeah, I mean, am I forgetting something else? I always forget, and then obviously 5 minutes later it just comes to my head. Oh yeah, so I'm doing my match preview. It'll drop tomorrow, because people might say why am I doing an early match preview, because Saturday obviously packed on football, but on a Friday because I'm gonna do also Liverpool against Bournemouth with obviously Premier League back, obviously exciting, obviously tomorrow. So yeah, but apart from that, I mean Liverpool, Bournemouth, watching on, tune in for that. But obviously before that, I'm gonna do a match preview for Arsenal, for United against Arsenal. So yeah, it'll be a good one. But apart from that, thank you guys for watching. Very long show. Take care. See you in the next one.